process is not directly connected to the employment process where you have to find a job. There are visas that it is connected directly to the visa and the employment process together, where you have an employer sponsored skilled visa. But if it is not an employer sponsored skilled visa, then the other normal visas that I have come through, or most of the people who come through skilled visa process, comes through the first they get the visa and they come to Australia, and then subsequently they get the employment in Australia. Actually, speaking, the two processes, that is, getting the visa is the difficult part, getting the employment is the easier part. So getting employment is not a necessary part of the visa process unless it is an employer skilled visa. So we have to differentiate between those two. What is the visa process and what is the employment process? So with regard to normal, what I have come through, I came through 489 visa, which is just temporary skilled visa, which is given for 4 years. Now it has been changed to 5-year visa, and the number also have changed to 491 skilled temporary visa. So in the 491 skilled temporary visa, the visa process is straightforward. It is documented. Anyone can do it from their own self, or they can get the help from an agent to do the process. So those two ways you can approach. If you get an agent, it will be a costly process, plus but it will be a guided process. But you can do it on your own self, which is a less costly process. But if there is no one to guide you, then you can make some errors. If you are careful, there are many persons who apply for the visa by their own self and come to Australia. Yeah. Sorry for the disturbance. So with regard to employment, your question was regarding employment. So the employment process is that after you get the visa, there are many options of employment, and most of the skilled workers initially get a temporary job not related to their work. Even myself, I got a job which is not related to my work, but subsequently, when you are in Australia, the whole job market is open for you, and then you can apply for any skill job within Australia.
Right. Thank you, sir. And like as you mentioned about the visa, can you please briefly elaborate the process of obtaining the skilled visa to Australia?
Yeah, so I would like to share my screen with you first. So if I go to, yeah, so if we go through the, I hope you can see my screen now. Can you see this slide?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah. So with regard to skilled migration, there are many visas that you can look into. Basically, there are 190 visa, skilled nominated visa, which is a permanent residence visa, and 491 is what we normally come through, where you get a sponsorship from a regional state, or say Australia is one main country, but it has different states like Northern Territory, then Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia. So it's there different states. So each state has a separate government called state government, and the main government of Australia is called the federal government. Right. So the state government will give you a sponsorship, and the 491 skill visa you will get with that sponsorship. So what I have come through is that the 491 skill visa. Uh, so 491 skill visa process. So the obtaining process is straightforward and given in the Department of Home Affairs website also. I will just give you the list of items. So the process of the visa is you submit an expression of interest to their website. So if I go to the website, yeah, this is the Department of Home Affairs website, right? So this is the visa web page that is given by the Australian government. Skilled work regional provisional visa. The subsequent interest is number one. Main applicant. So this is the main visa page. So you can see all the details are given here. So if you are doing it alone, you can do it alone. But only thing is that you can make some errors, which some errors may be very difficult to correct. So that's why a lot of people go through an agent, but still you can do it alone itself. So the visa process is like this. So if we go to our slide again, you have to submit an expression of interest, right? It is called EOI, to let Home Affairs know that you want to apply for this visa, right? Now, before you submit an expression of interest for the visa, you will have to see whether you are eligible to apply. So how do you see the eligibility? Can you hear me properly? I'm not sure whether you can hear me.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to first see whether you are eligible for this visa. So if this visa, if you receive this visa, these are the things you can do. This is, you can stay in Australia for 5 years, right? But still this is a temporary visa. Even if you stay in this visa, it's a temporary. You don't get the permanent residence until you get another permanent residence visa. So this is a temporary visa. You can live, work and study in any designated regional area of Australia. Travel to and from Australia as many times as you want. So you can travel between your Sri Lanka and Australia, or any other country and Australia within that 5 years. And you can, at the end, or after 3 years in Australia, during this visa, you can apply for a permanent residence visa, right? That is skilled regional subclass 191, right? So after you get the permanent residence visa, there are no conditions. But if you are in this visa, there are conditions that you have to consider. You have to comply with. So what are the conditions? That you have to be in the designated regional area. So other than Melbourne, Sydney, and there's one more area, main cities. Other than the main cities, all the other areas are considered regional for this visa purposes. So the whole Australia is open unless it is Melbourne, Sydney, and the one is Canberra. I think I can't remember the other city. So the whole Australia is open for these visa holders, and there is a complete pathway for permanent residence. After you stay in this visa for 3 years, you can apply for your permanent residency. So you have to check whether you can apply. So when we are checking the eligibility for this visa, number one is you have to be invited to apply, right? So to get invitation, that invitation is sent by the state government. So I got the invitation from Northern Territory, right? So you can apply for any number of territories, maybe Victoria, maybe ACT, maybe South Australia, any state you can apply and asking for a nomination, right? So that EOI is you have to submit through Skill Select. So you have to go to Skill Select website. So let me go there. So then you will have to open an account. You should have an email address, only the email address, name, birth, date of birth. All those will be asked in Skill Select. Uh, so you can open an account, start an EOI, login. So all those can be done by your own self. You don't need an agent to open an EOI, but you will have to see the eligibility. But we'll look at what eligibility is. So so you should, to get this visa, you have to be invited, then and nominated or sponsored. Nominated or sponsored means nominated by the state government. They will give a sponsorship letter directly to the Australian federal government or Department of Home Affairs. So then these are the main points that you have to remember before you submit an EOI. So have a suitable skill assessment, right? I will speak about skill assessment after 5 minutes. Be able to score 65 points, right? So this is the main thing. If you can score 65 points, then you are eligible to go through the visa process, whether it is 491 visa, whether it is 189 visa, whether it is 190 visa. If you have 65 points, you are basically eligible for eligible to apply for the visa, right? So this is the main point, 65 points. So how do you calculate the 65 points? Sachin, now if you are applying for this visa, then how do you calculate whether you have the 65 points or not, right? So the 65 points, the 65 points are calculated based on your age, based on your English language, that is your IELTS exam score, then based on your experience and educational qualifications, and some other more categories are there, right? So let me go through your points. Any question up to now?
No, sir, I think no. So far,
Yeah.
I think no. Participants
Yeah.
also chatted. No,
Yeah. So first, with regard to the skilled visa, right? You have to see whether you have 65 points, right? Now, this is the calculator. I can share this calculator or the links with you later on. You can share with others. So if, say for example, you are applying for 491 visa, so then you select that one, right? So then you select the age, say for example, this person he is applying is 30 years old, then you can select that age. Then English language is, now if you select competent English, that is IELTS 6 in each component, then you get 0 points, right? If you select proficient English, that means if you get 7 in each band, right? Or if you are doing other exams, you have the bands here. If you have 7 in each band in IELTS, you can get 10 points. If you get 8 in each band, which is a very difficult task to get 8, because the total score you can score in IELTS is 9. So out of 9 marks, if you get 8 in each, so there are 4 components in IELTS: speaking, writing, listening, and reading. So for each component, if you get 8, you will be considered as you are having superior English. So if you have superior English, you will get 20 points for that, right? Then for overseas work experience, so if you have 3 or 4 years in the occupation that you select, say if you are an accountant, then after your accountant qualification, whether your degree or whether you are chartered qualification or whatever it is, so after your qualification, the number of years of experience is considered here, right? So I qualified in 2003 and I applied in 2018. So I had 8 years or more in the job I applied. I applied for internal auditor occupation, right? So there is a thing called occupation list, which I will come back later. So I had 8 years or more. So if I had 8 years, I will get here overseas work experience 15 points. So remember, you need to have only 65 points from all of these selections. So Australian work experience, so I did not have any work experience, so it will be less than here. It's the highest educational qualification. For bachelor's degree, you get 15 points. For doctorate degree, you get 20 points. For diploma, you get 10 points. And if no recognized qualification, you get 0 points, right? Then Australian educational qualification. If you have 2 years full-time study from Australia, then you get maximum, I think, 5 marks, right? If you don't have, you will lose that 5 marks. So likewise, you have then specialist education qualification. If you have a master's or doctorate degree, you get another from natural and physical sciences, you get another 10 marks, right? So if you don't have, you put no. And this is we call NATI. You can get a NATI exam. I think it's available in Colombo as well, where you can do Sinhala language as a accredited community language, and if you pass that, you get another 5 points, as I remember. Yeah. So if you have that NATI qualification, you get another 5 points. Yeah, 5 points. So if you don't have, you just click no. Then partner qualification. If you are a married person, and if your wife is below 45 and has competent English, and competent English means the IELTS score as competent, and applicant has same subclass applying for the same visa, and has a suitable skilled occupation and a positive skill assessment, then you get 10 points, right? So if somebody has married and has the partner also having skilled qualifications and English language, competent English, then he can get 10 points. Likewise, you can select here. So if not married, you will get 0 points. So professionally in Australia, normally a person applying from Sri Lanka would not have here any experience. So we select no. So the total score here for this selection, what I did, has come to 80 points. So 80 points means you can apply for a visa based on the number points scheme. Is that clear? The 65 points? Sachin?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
thank you, and thank you for the explanation on visa process.
Yeah.
And my next question is, what are the job types that are highly demanded in Australia as a skilled worker currently?
Yeah. Before I answer to that question, I will go back to our slide on the visa process. So I could not cover the other areas. So you put an expression of interest, then you get the invitation or the nomination. Then you should have a suitable skill assessment, the 65 points when you are getting the sponsorship, and English. So the basic things you will have to do is, initially you will have to see whether you have skill as the 65 points. Then you should have a skill assessment, right? So if you have the 65 points, then you have to do a skill assessment. Say for example, you are applying as an accountant. So if you are applying as an accountant, you should do a skill assessment as an accountant. What does that do? It sees that whether you as an accountant have experience and qualifications to work in Australia as an Australian accountant. So comparatively, you should be able to prove from your education certificates and your experience letters and things like that. You have to put some documentation. So for accountants, they do by CPA Australia, the accountancy organization. They do a skill assessment, and you should get a positive skill assessment to apply for the visa, right? To apply for the nomination. So if you get a positive skill assessment in your job that you are putting in, then only you can start the expression of interest and request for a nomination. After that, the visa process is clear. If you get a nomination, then visa is lodged through a IMI account. We call it a IMI account. You have to create an IMI account in the Department of Home Affairs website, and then from that IMI account, if you go to, I'll show you what IMI account is. So this is the Department of Home Affairs website. So this is my account, my IMI account. Right, so these are the applications that I have put for our parents and myself, and you see all have been finalized. And this is another visitor visa that's done to my wife's parents. So likewise, you just open an IMI account and then you put on an application for the visa. So that's how the process is for the skilled visas in the Department of Home Affairs website. So to summarize the process in 1 minute, what you have to do is, number one is you have to see whether you have 65 points in the points test. Number two is you have to have a suitable skill assessment. Before the skill assessment, you will have to do the IELTS and get the number of points, and then you can put the EOI. And after you put in the EOI, it is not up to you. You will have to wait. You will have to apply for different states asking for nomination. You have to email them and then ask for nomination. There is a separate process for different states, and if you get the nomination, then you directly apply for the visa. So visa process is clear, and we will discuss the other things, other questions, so then you will get a brief idea on what the cost involved in this process. Yes, what was the question you asked regarding the other one?
Yes, sir. Before we move on to the next question, there's a question from our participants. Vidura Dunivilla has asked, can you please tell again the number of points you get for the proficient English? In the
proficient IELTS, yeah. Proficient English is, as I remember, proficient is 7 in each pair.
Yeah, I think he is asking the points that we get for the eligibility. Sir.
You mean the English language?
The score calculator?
Yeah, score calculator, yeah. Okay. So if you have, this is the Department of Home Affairs points calculator. So you have to English language, proficient English. You have competent English, proficient English, and superior English. For competent English, you don't get any points, 0 points. For proficient English, you get 10 points. So superior English, you get 20 points.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think Mr. Vidura is clear with that. And my next question was, what are the highly demanded jobs as a skilled worker in Australia these days? Potential people can target?
Yeah, so highly demand jobs, if you look at, it depends now. Say, for example, if someone who is here, a student, and if he is planning for a future, maybe after 3 or 4 or 5 years to come to Australia, then he has to look at what we call is medium to long-term skill list. There is a skill list in Department of Home Affairs website. You have a short-term skilled occupation list and a long-term skilled occupation list, long and medium term. So if someone is looking to apply after 4 or 5 years for a job and he is planning now for that job, then he will have to look at the long-term skilled occupation list, right? If someone is hoping to apply today or tomorrow, right, for a job, then he'll have to look at the short-term skilled occupation list, right? With regard to demand, I told you there are two processes. First thing is the visa process. Second thing is the employment process. Employment process has no direct connection to the 491 or the skilled visa, except where it is an employer sponsored skilled visa, right? If it is not an employer sponsored skilled visa, there is no connection between the visa and the employment, right? So there are people who come to Australia as an accountant and do driver job, right? Those who there are, because driver job, the bus driver, specifically speaking, bus driver job is a highly paid job in Australia and very demanding job in Australia, right? So, and but it has a big responsibility, but still it's a very demanding job. And speaking of Australia, Australia have a lot of accountants. There are now, if you look at the point scheme for an accountant to get a visa nomination, right, it's around 90 plus points, right? For an accountant to get a visa nomination, you should have at least 90 points, right? But if you take a say childcare educator, if you take a mechanic, if you take a mechanical assistant, right, for them you have about 65 points to get a nomination, because those are highly demanded and there are less people to work here, right? Nurses, doctors, doctors, of course the requirements is little bit tough because they need very good English level, 18 each band. For teachers also same, they need very good English to teach in Australia. So it's also IELTS 18 each band. So other than that, but they are highly demanding jobs in Australia. Nurses, doctors, engineers, every type of managers, right? So you can go through the skilled occupation list. So if I show you the occupation list, short-term occupation list, I'll share my screen with you. So here is the skilled occupation list, right? So you can see the, can you see my screen now?
Yes, very good.
Yeah, so you have all the accountant general, right? So all these are the visas that he can apply for an accountant, right? Actor. So if you have if you are an actor and you have qualifications and experience to show, so this is the list. So you go to that actor, this regional occupation list. This VET assessment is the authority that do the skill assessment, right, for the actor, right? For accountant, if you take accountant general, the medium to long term skill list. So you have CPA Australia as the assessing authorities for the skill assessment. Then you have Chartered Accountants ANZ, that is Australia and New Zealand. That's another organization that do the skill assessment, and Institute of Public Accountants of Australia, which is another organization who is doing the skill assessment. So these are the skill list, occupation skill list for Australian migration. So if your job is here and you have experience and qualifications regarding that job, you can apply. But if you are looking at jobs in Australia, like say for example, if you can go to seek.com.au, right? Uh, so I am working in Northern Territory. So if you look at accounting jobs, so you can see all the accounting jobs here in the Northern Territory. So many jobs, right? So if you are, say for example, you don't want accounting, you are a marketing guy, right? So if you look at that, advertising, arts and media, right? So they are material coordinator, cadet, leadership positions, events coordinator, art center manager. So all these shows that the different states. Northern Territory has very less jobs, but in other territories, like say for example Victoria, right? You take Victoria, uh, so there are thousands of jobs, right? In Victoria, you can get. So it goes on forever. This is the first page, 7, and you can go on forever. So the problem is not the now. If you are planning as a student now, then maybe after 4 or 5 years, if you are happy to apply, the one that you have to select is that from the occupation list, whether you like a job from there, right? From the occupation list, you select the job, and then based on that job, you get the qualification and experience as per your requirement. Then any job that you are currently doing, then you have to check whether it's there in the occupation list for you to apply for the visa. If it is not in the occupation list, you are unable to apply for the visa in Australia. I hope you got a clear picture on that.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you. And I think first of all we should be able to like finalize what part that we are going to go, and we have to have a long-term plan before we move on to the this application process. I think that's right, sir?
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
you
because
are hoping to apply in the short term, well, you should have already the experience and qualifications. But if you are
yeah,
hoping to apply in the long term, then you should plan ahead, and you should have, but you have to remember that all these skill list is always changing. Every year they change the list, but not drastic changes, but some occupations get out of the list and some occupations come into the list. So but most of the say 90% of the occupations will stay in the list every year.
okay, thank you, sir. And I think the next question is also more related to the things that we discussed now. That is, how does the Australian job market is going to differ from other countries' job market?
uh, I am say I can say like this. I don't have a knowledge to answer that properly, but I will say comparatively, Australian job market is a high paying job market. Plus, it's a highly taxing job market. Now, say for example, we don't talk of salaries here, monthly salaries. We talk of annual salaries. Say for example, an accountant can get about 80,000 plus $80,000 plus package, annual package, right? So that is before tax. So after tax, if we look at after tax income of that accountant will be around 65,000, right? So if you see a finance manager, he will get around 120,000 Australian dollar salary. That is before tax. But after tax, if you see, it will be around 90,000, right? 25% of will go as tax, more than 25%, right? So Australia has a good job market, and Australia pays well for the jobs that they provide. So compared to other countries, of course, I think compared to USA, UK, living cost in Australia is comparatively less compared to, say, for example, London and New York. Right, regional living is always cheaper, maybe, but compared to London and New York, it's cheaper here. So and the compared to USA does not have a free Medicare system where you get all the Medicare free, but Australia has a free Medicare system. You basically get 90% of all your treatments and um, all your medications free of charge from the government system. And Australia has a free education system where you don't have to pay for your children. But if you would like to put your children to a paid school, that also can be done. But my children all goes to government schools where they don't pay anything except some $100, $200 per year for their small trips and things like
Okay.
that.
Thank you. So I think the next question is also something that we discussed now. That is the average salary. I think people here could have got an idea about the average salary scale when
Yeah.
it comes to Australia. And as you said, the cost of living is a matter in all area. So how much does it cost for an individual and a family to live in Australia?
Uh, it depends on two or three factors. One is whether you are living in the city or whether you are living in a regional remote area. So when you are, say for example, I am living in Alice Springs, which is a remote area compared to a city. So I am paying $500 per week as rent for 2 bedroom house, right? And all my other expenses doesn't come to, maybe it will come to around 300 $400. So if you are if you have $1,000, you can live per week, right? Per week $1,000, you can live a very good life. So basically, even $1,000 is not a difficult thing to earn in Australia per week.
Okay, thank you, sir. And when it comes to family members, is there any restriction to bring out family members when we are working as a skilled worker in Australia?
Uh, there are no restrictions in bringing up family members. So even if you come to a student visa, still you can come with your family. Say for example, if one student is they are already married and they want to come as a student under student visa to Australia, then they will have working restrictions, but they can bring in the family. Even their children can be brought here. But student visa, there is a problem. Your children will not be provided with the free Medicare system, and students will not get the free Medicare system. But if you are coming for a skilled visa, then skilled workers will get the free Medicare system.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
sir. And when it comes to work culture, right, is it significantly different from Sri Lankan work culture, or how would the working environment in Australia?
Australia has a multicultural working environment, unlike Sri Lanka. I don't consider Sri Lanka as a multicultural because Sri Lanka has only Sinhala, Tamil, Sinhala and Tamil, and maybe another one or two different kinds of cultures together. But Australia, in my organization, in my accounts department, I am from Sri Lanka, accounts payable from Pakistan, accounts receivable from Nepal, then our payroll officer from Germany, and finance manager from Australian origin, and CEO from Australia origin. Then we have Aboriginal Aboriginal members, Filipinos, South American, South African, African countries, European countries. So if you, we have about 500 people in our organization, in our regional council, and almost more than people from 50 countries are working in our organization. Right. So it's a multicultural organization, and it has a good working environment, and people are always cordial. And there's a main difference in Australia, where the English is concerned. Now, when we come from Sri Lanka, we use English in a different level, but in here, the English is the only thing. You don't have ways to express other than by words. So they use the words very carefully in Australia. So you have to get used to how the English is used here. Only that is the only main thing that we will have to change. Other than that, if you are an accountancy student, you will still have IFRS and all the basic things there to come and work here full time.
Okay, thank you, sir. So far we have been discussing like important things when it comes to employability visa and like the migration process, everything. So now I think one of the critical parts that everyone is going to face is the other challenges that we face as a skilled employee when going to work in Australia. Challenges.
Yeah, challenges for work. Well, it depends. Now, say for example, you should be open, and so we are coming from a different culture. We are coming from a different background. So when you come here to Australia, there is a different culture of work, different culture of language use, then different way of living, right? So we have to adapt. We have to adapt ourselves for that changing environment, and we have to change ourselves. So you can't be a Sri Lankan in Australia, right? You have to be an Australian in Australia, whether you like it or not, right? So there are things that we can keep, our cultural heritage, all those can be kept, right? But still, if we are in Australia, we have to behave according to Australian culture, right? So Australian use of language and Australian way of life is a little bit different. Other than that, there are no major challenges for a skilled worker to come and work here, except that you may have your own challenges, like say for example, with regard to obtaining visa. I think the major problem will be the visa process itself. The visa process is not a difficult process, but still you have to be very careful in providing documentation, to giving correct answers. All those, if a critical answer is missed, or critical document is if a wrong document is given, then if that error can have a lot of consequences based on how much important the document is, right? Say for example, if you give a document to skill assessment, and that document is different from what you have saved in the documents that you are giving to the Department of Home Affairs, then that can have effects like that. So the main challenge is psychological, where you have to be willing to change, and other than that, maybe visa fee is a bit high for skilled workers. So skilled visa for 491 visa fee cost around 4,800, I think. Check. It's 4,200 for individuals. So that itself can be challenging. Other than that, there is no much of a problem that a Sri Lankan skilled worker can come and work here at any time. Even myself is the same.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And so as we move into Australia, we have to do our career to the next level also. So when we work as a skilled worker in Australia, what are the opportunities that we can have for our career advancement?
Well, It's like this now. I was working as a senior manager in Sri Lanka, but when I came here, I got down to the accounts clerk level. I have to start from accounts clerk level. I was the accounts receivable officer initially. So even before accounts receivable, I worked as a trainee in an audit firm in Melbourne, right, for 3 months, right. That period is a difficult period, but if you can stay strong, if you have a family or if you are coming alone, then you have to be psychologically fit to accept the challenge and come here. So after you come here, then how you should progress in your career path depends on yourself. Some people come and they would, if they want to do the same job that they did in Sri Lanka, that's fine. Then you should plan your career according to that path. Say, for example, if a finance manager in Sri Lanka wants to come here and work as a finance manager and go towards the finance director or something like that, then you have to go through that path. You can. There is nothing to prevent you from that. There may be some organizations where you get problems, like say for example, some people prefer white people. So because there are reasons for that. Now say for example, if I get a job, if I get a high level job as a director, then sometimes if the client's base is completely white, then they will have problems like my communication may not match their communication. There will be misunderstandings when we are communicating. So all those are prevented when they take a white person there, right? Other than that, there is in Australia there is no discrimination compared to other countries. I don't know, but compared, if you take in a white context, there is no discrimination. It's everything is equal rights, whether you have different culture, whether you are from different culture, whether you are from different background, whether you have different relationships. Now say people from different cultural backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, all those, they have equal rights here. So Australia is a equal rights country, and they provide opportunities for everyone on an equal basis. Even the government jobs are open for you. I worked for the government when I came here. So currently I'm working for a local government, regional council. Like in Sri Lanka, you have Pradeshiya Sabha, right? So even government jobs are open for you, right? So as a skilled worker. So there are no much difficulties. So everything is open, and opportunities depends on your attitudes towards the work.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the main area that we aim to discuss in the session were the things that we discussed so far regarding the requirements to the employability and visa, and we discussed about the job market Australia and also the salary scale and cost of living as we all further, and any restrictions, work culture and certain opportunities. And now I think can open the forum for questions from participants. Participants, if you have any questions, you can drop to the chat box, or even you can turn on the mic and ask. I think Lakshman sir will be happy to answer you. Anyone? So like that other talk, and I have small questions on what we have discussed. So far we have discussed about the employee visa, right? So employee visa, that means work visa. But is there any significant difference when it comes to student visa? Because most of us, I also go for studies in Australia, and most of the students nowadays are also trying to pursue a higher study degree or something in Australia. So, what is the process? Does it significantly differ?
Yes, student visa process is completely different from skilled visa. Where skilled visa, you have only experience and qualifications, and all the other things are straightforward. But student visa, you have a application process, then you have to get a university, you have to coordinate with the university, and then you have to get approval from the university, a pre-approval, then you have to get a final approval, then you get a visa, right, student visa. So up to coming to the student visa, the initial process is a little bit costly, because even if you get the visa, up to the time of the student visa will not cost that much, but the university fees, you will have to pay the first semester fees, sometimes the 2 semesters fees. So that will cost you a huge amount, right? And there are restrictions on your work rights. A student can work only 20 hours per week, but skilled worker does not have a limit. He can work 24 hours if he want, every day, right? So because if it's a visa condition that student can work only 20 hours per week. If you break that condition, and if you get caught, you will be sent back to Sri Lanka, right? So you can't apply for any other visa if you break a visa condition. So visa conditions are very important in Australia. So if someone breaks a visa condition, it's better to say goodbye to Australia. So that's a very important section on visa process. Other than that, if after you get the student visa, then it will be, if you are coming for a student visa for a master's degree, then I think there is no restrictions on the mm, work restrictions for the partner, but there will be work restrictions for the person who is doing the degree. Now, say for example, if I am coming for a master's degree, then I as a student will have a working restriction, but my wife, if she's my partner coming with me, then she will not have working restriction for if I am coming for the masters. But if I am coming for the bachelor's level, then I will also have working restrictions, and my partner also will have working restrictions. So that's how it works. And student visa process is normally handled by agents of those universities. So it's a different approach for visa process. So I think normally everyone should get through an agent if they are doing student visa, because there are a lot of documentation and reports that you have to write, etc.
Right. Thank you so much for the clear explanation. And there one more question that is from one of the members in the forum. I think he has texted me. So, sir, like, can you please briefly tell us what are the general laws and rules, both in the private sector and the government sector in Australia, the general practices that we can do and that we should not do if we go to Australia?
There is only very little things that I can say. Everything generally that you can do in Sri Lanka can do in Australia, generally, right? So if, say for example, if you are coming for a banking sector job in Sri Lanka, then there is a way you work in that culture. There is no difference in Australia. So, but even though the culture is a little bit different, the work culture will be the same, right? So your attitude towards work will be the same. How you do the work will be the same. Restrictions, there is no restrictions as such. Nobody will be watching you. Now, Australia, the cost of employees, that is cost of salaries, is the mm, main cost to any employer, right? As compared to Sri Lanka, uh, the major cost, if in any PNL in any organization, the major cost is the employment cost, that is salaries, right? So they will provide you with all the resources that you are required to do the work, right? And they want the job done as quickly as possible, because the cost of the salaries are high, right? So whatever equipment, tools, etc. you want, they will provide you. So, but they will not tolerate waste of time, because wasting of time in any organization in Australia is very costly, because it costs a lot to pay an employee, right? So that's the main area in Australia, that you don't have a chance to waste time, and if you waste time, you will get out of the organization.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think that applies to all the places in the world. Like as we are paid, we have to do our work correctly and appropriate time. Thank you, sir. I think again, once again, in the audience, if you have any questions, it's the time now. Any questions from the audience? You can drop it into chat box. So I think there are no more questions. I think the process has been well explained and understood by the participants, and thank you for that. And now I think we can move towards the conclusion of this experience sharing session. So to provide the vote of thanks on behalf of the LCL campus, I invite Mr. Chanaka Disanaika, the CEO of LCL campus, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Sachin. I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude to each and every one of who participate in our live discussion. Your active involvement and insightful questions and contribution made this program informative and engaging. I also like to extend a special thanks Mr. Lakshman Perera, sir, who shared your valuable experience and insight with us. Your generosity and sharing your knowledge and experience with us deeply appreciated. Lastly, I want to recognize, thank you Mr. Sachin, who expertly hosted this program with professionalism and enthusiasm. Your skills leading and moderating the discussion were instrumental in making this program success. Thank you all once again participation, this contribution. We look forward to continue this discussion and working together toward your shared goals. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again, Lakshman sir, for taking your time in your busy time schedule and providing this, sharing with the future professionals of Sri Lanka. Thank you so much. And I hope we can meet once again in another session in improving like the professionalism of our students. Thank you once again, and have a nice day all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Wish you good luck for your coming to Australia.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.